With the fall of Iberia and Castalla's Italian holdings, the Kingdom of Sardinia succeeded in defeating their old rivals for the first time in 400 years, led by General Napoleon. The campaign had been a brutal one, with North Africa and the land south of Seville destroyed by the constant fighting. Yet as the fire still burned across the two nations, a climactic moment occurred in the throne room of the once powerful Torres family. Napoleon Bonaparte, dressed in royal finery and bearing the baton of the nation, stood in front of a silent and somber crowd. For many, this was a day of triumph and excitement. Strong leadership returned to a resurgent nation. For others, a sad one, as the last hope of a return of Castilla Torres or even Seymunder was extinguished. And of course, for the true revolutionaries who had sought democratic rule and reform, was the return of a new shade of the same old color of bloody monarchy. As the crown of Sardinia was placed upon the head of an aging general, cries of exuberance were raised in the throne room, as outside cannons sounded the occasion for the waiting crowds to hear. The old capital of Sardinia was witness to a celebration unlike anything it had ever seen. With the Castallan-Sardinian War not even legally ended, a new empire was proclaimed in the Mediterranean, establishing the beginning of the Bonaparte dynasty. Already young Napoleon III had been born to the emperor's mistress, Viola Albertenghi. Later that week, she would be formally married to the emperor and wear a crown herself. All this was done to bring legitimacy and glory to the name of the once Corsican artillery commander, now ruler of equal status to any other ambitious monarch in Europe. The armies of Sardinia had been badly damaged in the war and were in need of time to rebuild. Napoleon did not only celebrate, night and day he planned with his growing general staff to expand the army and prepare for the next war to expand his empire. After tense talks within the fortress of Sassari, the command had recommended to the emperor war with the Fatmids, an ancient dynasty older still than the Torreses. They held the most danger and opportunity despite their larger size. Having fought in the previous wars with Castalla, it was well known there was no love that led to this course of action, only desire to claim the lands of Sardinia for themselves alone. But time was needed before the lands of Egypt would fall, and Napoleon, despite his growing age, was nothing if not a patient man.
We are Revolutionary Sardinia Corsica underneath an emperor. He got tolerant, by the way. He's also quite old now, 54. There's Ron the in power because we're about to be very, very aggressive and expansionist. We'll take the last remaining reforms too. Revolutionary Empire. Legion of Honor. Now that we've recognized the revolution into a hereditary empire, we must enlist our most famous countrymen to legitimize our imperial rule. The Legion of Honor shall be an order of knights, officers, and commanders, granted positions of great prestige in the imperial court. Those who believe in the ideals of equality believe that the law, whether it be a rule or a right, applies equally to all people, regardless of faith, social class, culture, and gender. Equally, all citizens should have access to all positions in our government based on our incompetence. So meritocratic, which is what we've been doing for a while and is certainly what Napoleon did historically. We're going to secularize the state, a professional army. So we'll go with empower royal decree. Imperial principle. The revolution has made it clear that our nation, above all others, wields the divine right to hold imperial hegemony over other nations. The states around us are fragile and weak, and it is clear that only by directly controlling these states ourselves will we ensure that the values of the revolution are enforced on the people. Economic, we're going to go with embracing industrial sector still. We'll go Machiavellianism. Without order, there's nothing but chaos, and men must be led. We must ensure that the word of our monarch is law in each and every case, and everyone does their utmost to realize royal design. Emperor of the Revolution. Our state is the home to the revolution. Our emperor is its head. It is only natural that we coordinate our emperor as the emperor of all those loyal to the revolution, rally the people around his divine cause. Our most noble autocrat, Emperor Napoleon I, is in need of a council to help him to stay in perfect control of his lands. As the most important person of our nation, who should the council consist of? The burghers, probably, I'd say. Yeah. They built our country.
The Castallan general staff stood in the morning light as the sun shone weakly through the trees of southern France. The last temporary capital of Provence had fallen several weeks prior, and with the surrender of the emperor, they had been left waiting patiently for the terms. Total surrender had been offered, though many had been against it. The distant sound of riders called the old general back to the present as he straightened his posture, sword loudly moving to attention at his waist. 4 riders approached at pace, one carrying the flag of the general in its imperial glory. The blue background offset the white eagle in a not so subtle manner. "Say what you will of that arrogant bastard, he understands how to inspire," General Zerd muttered under his breath. As the riders stopped before the gathered generals, a Sardinian officer stepped off his horse and gave a very short bow of the head before offering General Zerd an encased document. The Emperor's compliments. Inside you will find the final demands of the Peace of Provence. With a short laugh, the general shook his head in disbelief. Emperor? I knew he would not be able to stop himself. Napoleon is ambitious as Lissandro or Charlemagne himself. Ignoring the angry reply from the Sardinian delegation, the Castallan command returned to the Emperor's tent to read the demands. As the somber delegation watched Zirid unfold the scroll, muttering and angry looks accompanied their gaze. I was growing more and more deep as he read on. At last the scroll was cast onto the wooden table with an angry grunt. I told your majesty to not accept. What they asked for is far too much. With a wave of his jeweled hand, Castalla's monarch gave a heavy sigh.
We gambled on that we should not, and now a heavy price is to be paid. Now out with it. What does the damned Corsican want?
Pointing to the map before them, Zirid began to move his gaze with military detail. All lands from the Pyrenees to Italia are to be released as independent nations. Italian lands north of Napoli are to be released to their historical titles. Our lands in North Africa and southern Italy are to go to the Sardinians. And the Crown Colony of Mexico. It is to be given total autonomy. Outraged yelling followed from the generals and court of Castalla, but as they demanded a return to hostilities and revenge, the old emperor of Europe's once greatest power said nothing. He in truth had expected more, but it made the peace no less humiliating and crippling. The rest of his life and that of his son would be trying to put the pieces together again. Raising his hand, the room quieted immediately.
Damn you, Sarid. I should have listened. It is only when our mistakes are impossible to ignore that we clearly see those we should have listened to most.
Picking up the exquisitely made quill before him, the Emperor signed his name upon the demands and treaty, knowing well he had no way to refuse.
Gentlemen, this is not our end. I will only be remembered for my failures, but I have enough time left on this earth to begin rebuilding from them. Castalla has weathered storms before, and even though the sea is rough and there is no end in sight, this is not our end. This, I promise you.
When we're done with this battle, I'm just going to drill our armies and build new ones. We're going to do what Napoleon did historically, which is just centralize a new grand army and then just train them really strongly before starting new wars. Inspiring leader, tolerant, and strict. We got almost perfect traits on him. Large revolution in North Africa too. It's a very unstable time, to be fair. We've taken so much land. Our defeat of the revolutionary forces in Minorca represents a major setback for their cause. With their failure to overthrow the state, many of their former supporters across Iberia are losing faith in the revolutionary cause, opting instead to acquiesce to the continuation of empire. Jesus. Hawaii has completely risen up in our absence. We'll have to send the whole Grand Army to deal with them, or a large amount of them. We'll send the force, we'll send Graham to Asia. He'll deal with the rebels, and then we're going to prepare. To become leader to the Empress Consortia is a woman with a heart of gold. She always does her best to please her husband, the Emperor, and treats her friends with unparalleled kindness. During a recent trip to Crete, the Consortia saw the suffering of the poorest peasants with her own eyes, and ever since she's been drafting a plan to help them. Emperor Napoleon is a figure of immense military renown. His presence is said to be worth 40,000 men, instilling unshakable belief in our impending victory among both officers and common soldiers. The Emperor surveys the battlefield and prepares to give an order that will resound throughout revolutionary Sardinia. We're going to do a fire damage.
من الخزي والعار أن نلجأ إلى العنف. فليس من عادة الملوك قتل بعضها البعض.
Both the Sardinian army under Napoleon and the Egyptian forces under Al-Uwari's scouts had been aware of each other's forces since nightfall the day before. Neither seeking a battle in the cold early morning of North Africa, it was not until daybreak that the two armies met in Zuwara. A race towards the high ground on a hill to the south of the nearby town of Bir Mora occurred, though it was not an equal one. Napoleon deployed 3 divisions on the right to take control of the high rocks there, in the naturally defensive position. On the left, he deployed 1 division of cavalry and 2 more infantry to take the flank. and in the center, he commanded Colonel Rodier to make haste with 2 divisions of his elite troops to hold the center and make time for the artillery to make it to the high ground. A contingent of Mamluk cavalry did succeed in reaching the left flank, but found stiff resistance from Sardinian infantry. Forced to retreat after suffering catastrophic losses, the Mamluk cavalry did manage to get word to Aluwari that the left was a lost cause, leading to the general sending only a division to hold the flank from counterattack. Deciding a forward course of action was the best. Aluwari deployed the majority of his forces up the center, which although steep, seemed doable with overwhelming numbers. The first attack came dangerously close to breaking the Sardinian line, who lacked artillery support of any kind. Asserting from the hill, Napoleon gave the order for the cavalry to advance on the left, allowing defenders there to rout another Mamluk cavalry division, after a period of intense fighting, leaving Aluwari with only 2 remaining divisions of cavalry. Despite these successes, the forces of the Fatmids prepared for another advance, after waiting for the Egyptian artillery to finish bombarding the Sardinian lines. The moment the battle truly started to shift towards the Corsicans came after the arrival on the top of the hill of Sardinian artillery, which managed to achieve a lucky ball, hitting the Egyptian gunpowder and shell wagon next to the enemy's artillery line, wiping out half their firepower in a moment. With a heavy heart, General Aluwari gave the command for an all-out assault, moving from confidence to desperation. The forces of the Fatmids inflicted significant losses on the Sardinian force, but were unable to take the hill. As losses mounted throughout the next hour, Aluwari gave the order as well to retreat, stop a general rout at 4 p.m., bringing the hill in victory to Napoleon, leaving the path to Egypt wide open. Knock out both of those armies real quick. We have another army coming from the west as well. There was a rather large one. We should be winning both of these easily. We are going to try and secure the fort line if we can before going further east. We are also in particular just waiting for their armies here. We have obviously the fleets currently patrolling the Mediterranean. Not that they can do very much. They do still have a navy left over, but it is very minor. The Fatmids did just hit our fleet. I think we'll be fine. We still have a massive advantage. Let's see what happens. They actually did more than I expected, but we are going to win this. We have sunk a massive amount of their fleet. We've actually lost a lot, though, I will say. And we already took Cert. All right, we'll keep going. This is going to be a very big battle. We will. They're going to retreat with the remainder of their army. We are going to absolutely slaughter the Fatmids' western force here, defending Benghazi. All right, they do have a defending force here. Let's go ahead and make sure we have backups. This will be a big one. We're going to go all in on this. For our victory in the Battle of Iskandaria, we will have secured ourselves a foothold within Egypt proper. All right, they are not going to push in further here. We did have a pretty big retreat. I'm going to go back a little bit. Let's see if we can knock out the last of that army there. All right, we should retreat this. We've won a couple of big battles here, but we're not getting out anytime soon. All right, we did win a battle there, but we did get pushed back. They do have overwhelming troops, you got to remember here. We really got to hope that the British are going to get more involved. I think we can win this, but we really need to get reinforced and start hitting more strategically. We sunk the flagship of Egypt. Fantastic. And I think we probably will hire some mercenaries here too.
We are going to go down a lot of men for reinforcements, so we need to be very smart with these next battles. We are going to go ahead and pull back to the fort line, I think, and we're going to maneuver around them when they take their sieges here. We need to really knock up their armies before we go east again. 1,000 still. We're up to almost, I think, a little under 200,000 men now. We're just going to let them attrition here in this siege, and then we'll hit them when they start to go west. All right, let's all in. Here we go. All right, let's get reinforcements, and we're going to hit the Georgians in Biserta. They're really losing manpower, but they're back up to full on actual armies. I think the way that we do this is we have to move quick, and we have to start knocking out these armies before they can get reinforcements. They won't get away in time, so I was hoping for. Oh, Egypt actually went to Italy. The fools! They left Egypt open for us? Let's block off their ability to escape, too. We can knock out that stack in Sicily. Yeah, if there were armies in Italy right now, we can siege out the heartlands of Egypt and make them peace. Our capital won't fall. That's all newly acquired land, you gotta remember. We will not feel that as much as they will feel Egypt.
The road to Cairo had been left open on purpose, or at least the Fatmid general staff would later claim. In reality, the forces of Egypt were in such chaos, if such a plan existed, it is likely few knew of it. Chance and poor luck for Sardinia is what in reality resulted in the Battle of the Pyramids. Scouts had failed to notify Napoleon of two forces converging on the location, one under General Khalid bin Saul and that of Al-Uwari. The generals met face to face an hour before the battle, where General Al-Uwari took command of all forces being senior, preparing his to wait for the enemy. Napoleon realized the enemy's position not long after, but was in no position to retreat, lacking supplies or a clear path to escape. Outnumbered 3-1 at least, the Emperor's reinforcements had been delayed repeatedly, leaving him with nothing but the old guard. As the battle began, Napoleon dispatched 2 divisions to hold a small hill and the majority of his cannons to take the high ground. On the right flank, he dispatched a single division and several cannons to hold. Al-Uwari sent his troops to engage right, push forward, as well as a division of cavalry to make a fast far left flank around the high dunes. As fighting began, it turned into a bloody and desperate affair for both sides. Sardinian infantry, low on ammunition, tried to make every single shot count, but they were lucky to have the support of cannons of shot and good supply. Egyptian soldiers faced a blistering array of close-range cannon fire, causing massive casualties as they reached the Sardinian line again and again, only to be pushed back. The big break for the Egyptians came when his flanking move hit the Sardinian cannons on the right, completely unnoticed and breaking the line. In minutes, all of the artillerymen were dead and the cannons were taken, though with a counter from Sardinian lancers, the cavalry would not last long before retreating. Exploiting the weak left, Al-Uwari sent several divisions to pressure the line. Before long, Napoleon found himself holding nothing but the hill. As the infantry ran out of ammunition, brutal fighting began. The Sardinian soldiers were slowly pushed back up the hill to the sound of canister shot blowing overhead. Even with such a hard position, Napoleon's army rallied, every man a veteran of many battles and utterly loyal. As losses mounted, General Aluwari gave the order to bring up his own artillery, ordering them to unleash canister shot of their own, causing many friendly deaths but breaking the Sardinian line through sheer loss. And it was not enough. As his own men at last began to retreat and rout, Napoleon's cavalry pressed the moment, pushed his troops back down the hill, causing the general himself to have to retreat. This decision would spell disaster by the defenders. Napoleon, seeing only several thousand of his own men holding, decided to leave a cavalry push on the right flank to finalize the rout, as if the enemy reformed, it would be total defeat. Pursuing the fleeing soldiers, as dusk approached, the last of the Sardinian cavalry under his control sought to ensure a full rout of the enemy. On the crest of a sand dune, in a surprising turn, the forces of the enemy, perhaps knowing they could not escape, or perhaps realizing that their pursuers were no ordinary soldiers, opened fire. By a stroke of luck, one shot found its target in the breast of the emperor, knocking him from his horse into the sand below. As he lay there, in the scorching heat, feeling life itself start to abandon him, the general knew well was to come. Looking across the horizon towards the pyramids in the distance, he felt the irony of the moment. In the land of pharaohs, a place empires had conquered for all of history, he would find his end. Though his legacy, perhaps, would be secure. As grieving soldiers surrounded Napoleon, he spoke his last words of a fire which would not be extinguished until the moment of death.
La mort n'est rien, mais vivre vaincu et sans gloire, c'est mourir tous les jours.
This is going to get very tricky very quick. I'm going to be very risky here. I'm going to let them go past us.
As the armies of Sardinia retreated to Iskandar in the west, their forces were disorganized but still significant. News traveled quickly across the sea to Sassari, where Napoleon's young son was immediately declared emperor. In moments like these, it is only loyalty and luck which allow a new dynasty to survive. The actions of the first Bonaparte ensured that his generals and staff were willing to forego the power struggle until his legacy was ensured. A military council was convened quickly and professionally, dispatching envoys to Egypt to treaties with the Fatmids. Originally, the plan had been for almost complete annexation and the destruction and breaking of the Fatmid dynasty. But instead, the negotiators sought only one thing: the Suez Canal. After a week of strenuous talks and threats of continued war, the Treaty of Cairo was signed. In the end, it was exhaustion and fear which made the Fatmids agree. Their forces, though numerous, had only won a few battles the whole war, and with their navy in pieces, something needed to be done. Despite the loss of a great leader to Sardinia, the future was one paved in some glory, or so they thought. Weeks later, news came that the Fatmids had struck one last dagger into the Sardinian nation as it retreated from the east. The Suez's dams and walls in numerous places had been completely destroyed, making it impossible to traverse, and the cost of repairs being momentous. A bittersweet end to a war which could have forged a true empire, akin to Alexander himself.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Suez Canal. All right, for the last few years, we're just going to try and stabilize.
In the halls of Westminster, the First Lord of the Admiralty, the Secretary of War, and King's ministers sat in a smoky room filled with the fumes of cigars they shared. Raising a glass of whiskey in the air before him, Arthur Wellesley cleared his throat. Toast, gentlemen, to the end of this nonsense in Africa. The death of Napoleon will allow His Majesty's government chance to establish its permanent power properly, I dare say. The King's minister gave a shake of his head, causing his significant sideburns to shake as he did. Quite right, Arthur. But there's only half the reason we are here, is it not? You're sure that such a moment should be used like this? The Royal Navy has never been stronger or more well-equipped, I will give you. But the Sardinians have beat the odds before. I confess, I have some worry about the outcome. The First Lord of the Admiralty was in truth a very cautious man, carrying on the tradition of careful control which had defined his position for hundreds of years. Sir Wellesley took a moment to inhale another long drag from his cigar before pointing itself towards Europe. Damn it, George. Cowardice does not suit you. This is a unique chance to take naval primacy held by those bastards. Our colonial state is not what it used to be, we all know it. We need this, and to put it frankly, so do you. Internal Affairs knows all about your wife's involvement with those radicals. What's their name? That party out of Bavaria. I can never remember the damn thing. Point being, if you do not publicly give your recommendation for war to the King and Parliament, I suspect news of this will be in every London paper come the morrow. A look of outrage and anger, but it was not the King's men who it was directed at. Turning to the Secretary of War, he raised a finger. Him I would expect this from. But from you, John, really, I thought you a better man than friend. Both somber and resolute, the man who looked more ancient than the paintings which lined the room gave a long sigh as well. I've been alive longer than most in England, let alone this government. Of course, the guy has shaken up Europe more than anything in recent memory. This is an opportunity we will lose quickly if not taken. You always stood in the way of what needed to be done, and by Jupiter's ass, I won't be doing so today. Sign the statement, give your recommendation to Parliament, and do your damn duty. The plan to invade Sardinia was one conceived out of an almost desperate yet confident hope to end their maritime power. The English had always been a close second, and this moment could be when they finally began to truly rule the seas.
This severe and afflicting loss will not be sustained. And England, thank Providence, will ascend again.
All right, rally the fucking Navy. Let's go, boys. We'll meet up in Biserta. They've got a big-ass fucking Navy, too. This is going to be rough. We need to get our army into Italy immediately and take the offensive of Lombardy. We need to use our Navy to cut off the Strait of Gibraltar and knock off the Britain's fleets. And then we need to siege out Lombardy, and then we can navally invade the fucking British. Let's goddamn do this. This has been a long time coming. They've been looking to a war with us for a long time. We still have Jeroen de Lodewijk, though. One of the greatest admirals we've had besides that 666. Our country is ruled once more by the Navy and the High Command. And we will see if our army has grown competent enough to hold its own here against a truly great power. They're the 8th greatest power. If we win this, we will replace them as one of the world's greatest powers. Start ferrying our armies to Sicily, and then let's put our Navy. Brazil's gonna have to try and hold out without us too. Let's go out, help them out a little bit navally. We are leading the Mediterranean unguarded, but I think we'll take the risk right now. The British fleets, that's on the coastline. Those galleys are gonna be really useful. No, they don't have galleys, they have light ships. We're gonna win this then, I think. Pretty handily too. Ooh, they have a strong navy, not gonna lie. We sunk no ships there. All right, let's go back to Gibraltar. Far on the fort. I'm gonna overstack here so we can rush this. They landed in Sassari! Fuck, we should not have left the med like that. Ooh, this is bad. Sassari has never been sieged out. Brazil's just getting destroyed. We're just not going to look over there for a little while here. Where are we getting navally invaded? We sunk the flagship of Lombardy. Nope. We're going to have to take the crossing. All right, let's go, boys. They have no retreat, though. We will stack wipe if we win here. They tried to take Sassari, which no man has done in probably 500 years. They're not going to do it again. They're making a play for Gibraltar. God, that's a lot of heavy ships. We have to take this, though. Are they actually running? They're actually running from our navy. Oh, my God. Oh, man, that's their transport fleet. Hold Gibraltar, win in Italy, then we'll deal with this shit later. Florence has fallen. To Milano, last time we were here, we had our army wiped. We have revolutionaries too. Brazil's gonna fall. Venice too. It's farmlands, let's take this. They have a large force to the west too. Let's prepare to reinforce in Milan if we need to. Brazil's fallen. I guess we're not going to take it. That's fine, we'll take Milano. They fear us like a force of nature. Oh yeah, let's go! The big one! Oh, their heavy fleet ran. Cowards! Go, 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 go! Yeah, we're gonna get it! Nice!
3 years after the start of the Anglo-Sardinian War, a treaty was negotiated in Sassari. Despite the fall of Brazil, the British fleet lay almost entirely destroyed, the colonies of the empire cut off from all maritime trade. Suffering economic collapse and no support at home, the British agreed to the terms of surrender, including a massive transfer of war reparations, and British lands in Brazil transferred to the Republic. The treaty did not give any concessions to the Sardinian government, but with an almost equally bad situation at home, the military command, negotiating Napoleon II's stead, sought to end things and not drag out the war any further. In the ethereal glow of morning dawn, Castilla Torres sat on the steps of Azushi Castle, engrossed in the missive that had arrived just moments ago. The seal, bearing the Torres' crest in black ink, marked it as a message from one of his agents still embedded in the lands of his youth. A faint smile played across his weathered countenance, a rarity typically reserved for his children, or the grand annual festivals in the heart of Tajumi's capital. As he delved into his reverie, Castoro couldn't help but reminisce about the agony and humiliation he endured during the Sicily campaign, fleeing from Napoleon as his forces were mercilessly slaughtered in the island's many hills. On that fateful day, he had sworn vengeance. Fate had other plans. The former emperor's attention snapped back to the present, shattered by the resounding clash of training sabers. His son, Simon, locked in combat with his tutor. At the tender age of 7, Simon had already grown into a robust and sturdy young lad. After bearing 4 daughters, Castoro couldn't deny the immense relief he felt after his wife, Victoria, finally gifted him with a son, an heir to the Torres Legacy. Not that a daughter couldn't inherit, but in these precarious times, every ounce of legitimacy mattered if they hoped to reclaim their rightful place. Simon, come sit with me, Castoro intoned solemnly, causing the boy to startle. Simon approached his father on the steps and took a seat, his demeanor somber. What did I do wrong? I know my form still needs improvement. With a shake of his head, Castoro couldn't contain a chuckle, despite himself, much to Simon's bewilderment. It's not about your form. No, your dedication, sirs, that won't be a concern for very long. This is about something else. I have received news from our home in Sardinia. Napoleon, the usurper, is dead, killed by his own audacity and hubris in Egypt. Castoro didn't expect his son to fully grasp the gravity of the situation and its implications, but it was important for Simon to know. Wordlessly, the boy rose, gripping his practice sword so tightly his knuckles turned pale white. He moved back towards his tutor, assuming a resolute stance with a fire burning in his eyes. Fear not, father. I will grow stronger and fulfill my duty. Our family shall reign in Sardinia, and your dream will be realized through me, if need be. Stunned into silence, Castoro shook his head, sharing an amused glance with his son's tutor. At times, Simone, you remind me so much of my own father. But remember, diligence and determination alone may not suffice. It's often an opportunity that distinguishes the victorious from the merely ambitious. The clash of training swords filled the morning air as the exiled emperor and daimyo Tashima leaned back on the steps, looking out towards the ocean in the distance. For the chaos that was sure to follow recent events, opportunity was not far away. This concludes the grand campaign portion of EU4, a period of dramatic change and many ups and downs for House Torres. Despite a Bonaparte sitting on the throne of Sassari, our favorite house is very much alive and plotting revenge in the east. We will continue the grand campaign in Victoria 3 from here. I want to thank everybody who has been along for the ride so far. This episode has taken a lot of time to make, and I hope you enjoyed it. Special thank you to Eli for voicing the Spanish king in the episode today, Troconera for keeping track of the monarchy in exile, and for you, sharing this amazing story with me. The tower will rise again. I will catch you soon.